Hi knitters! Today we're going to learn Judy's Magic Cast-On, which is a stable and invisible provisional cast-on. In order to do Judy's Magic Cast-On, I need 2 needles, and these can either be 2 DPNs, they can be 2 circular needles, which is what I have here, or you can use 1 circular needle and use both tips. I have 2 needles. One is this gray needle on a pink cord, and the other is this silver needle. And I'm using 2 different colors so that it's easy for you to see what I'm doing. You may have needles that are the same, and that's just fine. And I also have this pretty multicolored yarn that makes it easy to see each stitch. So to start Judy's Magic Cast-On, we're going to drape this yarn across the top needle, and I am going to call this needle, the gray one, the top needle, and I'm going to call the silver needle the bottom needle for the purposes of this demonstration. You know, and like I said, yours can be maybe the same color, and that's just fine. So now I'm going to drape the yarn across the needle so that the tail is in front and the working yarn that goes to the ball, here's the ball of yarn, is in the back of the needle. And I'm going to bring the second needle, the silver needle, which I am calling the bottom needle, up underneath, like that. And now I'm going to pick up the yarn. I'm going to pick up the tail yarn across my pointer finger, and I'm going to pick up the working yarn across my thumb. Now, this looks very similar to how you would do a long tail cast-on, if you're familiar with that cast-on. But with that cast-on, I would hold my hand like this so that the palm is up and I can see the palm of my hand. With Judy's Magic Cast-On, I'm going to hold my hand so that the palm is down and the back is up, and I can see the back of my hand. And that will keep me from getting tangled up in yarn that I don't need to use. Okay, so this twist that we've made across the top needle, around the top needle, counts as the first stitch. So that means I need to make a stitch now around the bottom needle. And the bottom needle always gets its yarn from the top yarn that's around my forefinger, this purple yarn that goes to the tail. There's 2 movements I can do. I can either swing the needles up and down like a pendulum while I keep my left hand relatively still. Okay, see? I would never want to change which needle's on top and which needle's on the bottom. I would never want to flip them over like this. I'm just swinging them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Or I can use my left hand, keep my right hand relatively still, and use my left hand to bring the yarn to the needle. But you should try both methods and decide which one works better for you. So now I need a loop around the bottom needle. The bottom needle gets yarn from the top yarn around my forefinger. So I'm going to move that yarn down to the bottom needle and make a loop around the needle, like so. And that loop now counts as the second stitch cast on. Pardon me, I keep dropping my yarn. Now I need to put another stitch around the top needle because we always work back and forth, first on bottom, then on top, then on bottom, then on top. And the top needle always gets yarn from the bottom needle that's around my thumb, so that's this red yarn. So I'm going to move my hand up and make a loop around that top needle with my thumb. Now I need another loop around the bottom needle. That comes from the top yarn around my finger. So move the hand down, make a loop around the bottom needle. Now don't get too hung up on which direction you are looping the yarn around the needle. You can either loop clockwise or counterclockwise, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter if you're consistent from stitch to stitch. You can do it either way that's comfortable for you. All of the magic is happening between the needles here in the way that the yarn is twisted around itself, or the 2 strands are twisted together. It doesn't matter which way that the yarn is wrapped around the needles or what's happening around the needles. The only thing that will change is the way that the stitches are mounted. And that means, you know, if they have their leading leg in front of the needle or if the leading leg is behind the needle. And we'll talk about that when we knit the first round. So just to prove that I don't have to be consistent, I'm going to do both directions as I do this so you can see. So I need a stitch around the top because let's say I have 2 on top and 2 on the bottom, so that means I just put 1 around the bottom because I started on the top. So I need this red yarn around my thumb to go around the top needle. And then the top yarn, purple yarn around my finger, will go around the bottom needle. And then 1 more around the top. And then another one around the bottom. I'll go that way this time. And now 1 around the top, 1 around the bottom, 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 and you just keep working back and forth like that. Now be careful. There's a tendency when you first learn to hang on to the yarn really tight in your left hand, but the yarn won't get away, and you need to hold it loosely enough so that it can slide through your fingers, and you want to aim to have these loops about the same tension as your regular knitting. And when you've all finished casting on, if you turn the needles over, you will see this row of purl bumps. Let me see if I can get it in close to the camera. I'm not sure it will focus, but see the row of purl bumps there? Those are actual real purl bumps. When you do the cast on, you actually create the first row of knitting. And just to prove that, I'm going to pull the top needle out, and you will see that, oh look, these are actually real knit stitches. See that? Okay, now we have to start over again because I pulled that out. So yarn goes over top needle, bottom needle comes up underneath, pick up tail yarn over finger, pick up working yarn over thumb, top yarn goes around bottom needle, bottom yarn goes around top needle, top yarn goes around bottom needle, bottom yarn goes around top needle, top yarn goes around bottom needle, bottom yarn goes around top needle, top around bottom, bottom around top, 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 top around bottom. We'll do 1 more. Bottom around top, top around bottom. You can see this tail is just kind of loose and hanging there, and in order to tighten it up, I'm going to pull it around in front of the working yarn. Around, here's the working yarn, down here, and I'm going to pull this around in front and just kind of hold it along the needles. And now I'm going to turn my needles so that the points are turning to the right because I'm going to knit. There's been a lot of discussion about which way to hold the needles and how you know you're holding it the correct way to start the first row. Some people have ended up with their purl bumps on the outside, which of course is not always to be desired. The easiest way that I've found is to hold the needles so that they're parallel to the floor with the purl bump side pointing up. Okay, so pretend that this is the wall. The purl bump side is pointing up to the ceiling, and I'm going to pull the needle that's in back, farthest away from me, to the right, and let the stitches be on the cable. And then I'm going to knit from the needle that is closer to me. And that will guarantee that your purl bumps end up on the inside of your sock. All right, now, this first stitch is actually mounted so that its leading leg is in the back. So I'm going to knit that stitch through its back loop, or knitting the stitch through the middle to untwist it. Once I've knit that stitch, I can drop the tail yarn because I don't need it anymore. And here's another stitch that's knitted with its leading leg in the back. See how it's in the back there? So I'm going to also knit it through the back loop or through the middle of the stitch so that it's not twisted. This stitch is mounted with its leading leg in front. So I'm going to knit it through the front. And remember that that's determined by the direction that you wrap the yarn around the needles, and that it doesn't matter. Just have to be careful when we knit those stitches the first round. This one has its leading leg and back. Knit it through the back loop. Leading leg and back. Knit through the back loop. Leading leg in front. Knit through front. Leading leg and back. Knit through back. Knit through front. Knit through back. Knit through front. Okay? Need a little more yarn here. And now I'm going to turn my needles, rotate them around so that I can knit in the round. And I'm going to pull the silver needle to the right. This is the bottom needle to the right, so the stitches are on the cable. I'm going to push the gray and pink needle so that the stitches are on the needle ready to knit. And now I'm going to knit across that needle. Alright. Leading leg in front, leading leg behind, leading leg in front, leading leg behind, leading leg behind, leading leg in front, leading leg in front, leading leg in front, leading leg in front. And there you have it. That's Judy's Magic Cast-On, and you can see it's completely invisible on this side. It's completely invisible on this side. And you can see there are 3 rows of purl bumps because you've actually knit 3 rows. Have a fun time doing wonderful things with Judy's Magic Cast-On.